So welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. I know this is a very, very busy time for folks as we start to get ready for the end of the school year. So thank you for your time and commitment. I do want to excuse Greg Bailey had another commitment and then I was sick the last time. So I'm glad between the two of us we can make it. So thank you everyone for joining this evening. So why don't we get started? I know we also have Kim Kelly is here she's part of the agenda this evening. But before we get to the agenda, let me go ahead and just review with everyone. We have a CNI update this evening. We're going to be speaking about planning for the next school year for our work, along with the definition of equity and talking about an update with our board policy. And then finally ending with calendar dates for the next school year. And so we may end a little early. We'll see how it goes, but definitely want to welcome you all this evening. So why don't we get started? And I'm going to look at some public comments. We do have public comments this evening, and I will pull it up. Just a second. Okay. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and get started. We have two public comments, but I believe it's from the same person. So this is Amal Nanavati. And so his submitted public comment was, I have watched several of your meetings. Watching a group of 25 people trying to draft an equity statement was painful. A group this size is too big to do that kind of work. I suggest that members create some working groups around topics of interest to the committee. The subcommittees can do research and write up reports. Then you can use the main meeting for presenting their work and voting on it, and also disseminating information. I have seen this model work in many organizations with many different membership and goals, and believe it will make your very important committee more efficient and make good use of your members' time. I really appreciate the work the equity team continues to do. I have 3 thoughts I'd like to share. Minutes have not been posted online for any of the meetings this year. Can these minutes be posted so the public can easily access and revisit the meeting content? 2, I noticed that the second reading of the equity policy that was presented to the board on May 5th, agenda item 13.1, still had the word racial in the first sentence, even though this committee's members explicitly removed it. Can you give the public clarity on how the decision was made? 3, there is a study session on equity during this week's board meeting, but don't see it in today's equity team agenda. I think it would be great if such large communications about equity go through this committee first, so the stakeholders in this committee can weigh in before it gets to the board. So that concludes our public comments for this evening. I'm going to go ahead and I think we'll cover some responses as we go through the agenda items. I know we typically don't do that, but it'll be important as we start to set the stage for next year. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome Kim Kelly, who is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. If you recall, she is going to give us an update on the work of curriculum instruction. And I know we have some same members on her committee, so actually this actually works out really well. And it's a way to really coordinate. So I'm going to give this to Kim to share and give an update. Thank you, Kim.
Great. Thank you very much, Letty, and thank you to all of you for inviting me to be here tonight. And I would like to excuse the members who just came straight out of the CNI committee and have already heard this presentation. If you'd like to turn off your cameras and go get one bite of dinner, you are welcome to do that because there are quite a few of us who just came across from the CNI meeting. But what I was asked to do tonight was to just give you a sense of some of the projects that are being worked on by the Curriculum and Instruction Department around equity. We're doing lots of projects beyond these, but I'm just really excited and very proud to be able to show you the number of projects that our small but mighty staff is working on. And so I'm going to share a presentation. I'll go through these slides, and then I would be glad to take I'd be glad to take any questions that you've got. All right, so just regarding projects relating to equity being done by the Curriculum and Instruction Department. So one of the places that we know it's actually pretty straightforward to work equity into the experiences of our students is around what happens in our language arts classes and what happens in our social studies classes. So these first four bullets address language arts and social studies. Within language arts, we have two kinds of materials that we have students read. We have what we call core literature, and core literature is defined as um, required reading. So if there are core novels, say at the 10th grade level, the assumption is that all 10th grade students would at some point in their 10th grade year read those. We also have supplemental novels, which can be used, chosen by a teacher, used to supplement the core novels, and very often teachers choose novels that they feel would be particularly relevant to the students that are in that class. So we've got work going on right now, both around our core literature adoption and around supplemental novels. So we've got a core literature adoption team in process right now. They started working this year, and they're going to continue working through most of next year. They include English teachers from all of our secondary schools, so junior highs and high schools. The first step that we took was that we worked together to develop a vision for the experience that we wanted students to have from their literature. And we want it to be a cohesive experience from when they enter seventh grade to when they graduate as 12th graders. So we really wanted to define what that experience would look like. And then now that we've defined that vision, we're in the process of defining how we're going to identify novels that are candidates, how we're going to analyze each of those, and then how we're going to bring a set of novels together in a cohesive way so that a student has a really comprehensive experience across those 6 years in secondary schools. So that's what's happening with the core literature adoption team. In addition to this, we have supplemental adoption committee, and the supplemental adoption committee has met basically 3 times this year. And over the course of that, they've approved 12 novels that can be added to that supplemental reading list. Again, those are novels that teachers can choose to use or not use. So the beauty of this is that we're really excited about the diversity of authors, the diversity of characters in those, even the diversity of genres. We have some poetry, we have some graphic novels, we have um, lots of different choices for teachers to use as they are connecting with their students. In the history realm, we are excited because we just adopted a new social studies curriculum for our elementary grades, kindergarten through 5. And one of the things we're particularly excited about is that this aligns with the FAIR Act, which is a law that defines equity and who needs to be included and represented in history materials. And also it aligns with the California History Framework. Our old materials were old enough that they neither aligned with the FAIR Act nor the History Framework. So this is a real step forward for us. We also have a history and social studies work group that is in the process of bringing together best practices for teaching history. And from that, we're going to create a guide. And then ultimately, there will be professional development for our history and our social studies teachers that comes out of that. And that, again, is a year-long project. We also are looking at other places where we want to weave equity into our curriculum. And one of those is around the materials we have to teach science with. The state of California a few years ago adopted a new set of science standards, the next generation science standards. And we were excited to have adopted NGSS-based science materials for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students this year. We're looking forward to continuing to adopt for our elementary and for our high school as the years move on. We are in the process of creating summer math academies for our elementary students and also for some of our junior high students, our 7th and 8th graders. That is going to be focused on helping them move forward on specific standards that they're struggling with. And we have also integrated SEL, or social emotional learning, into that math instruction. So it's kind of going to be a combination of helping students return to school comfortably and learn how to be healthy emotionally while we're also working on math instruction. We are also in the process of working on materials that our teachers can use to help students return to school next year. So for our elementary grades, we've put together specific lessons that teachers can use for their first 5 days of school, and teachers were um, sent an email just in the last couple days introducing them to those. For secondary, rather than individual lessons, we've put together a toolkit, and secondary teachers can use whatever feels appropriate for the grade level of students they're working with, and also for whatever the topic is that they're teaching. Our administrators in the fall are going to be getting some professional development on trauma-informed practices, which really takes into account the impact that trauma trauma for a child has on their ability to be available and to learn well. We are excited to have been able to fund 2 major webinar opportunities. We had 44 of our teachers and administrators attend a workshop in March called Conversations About Race, and this is serving as a springboard for us to continue to take a look at our practices and our policies in schools. In addition to that, we had 37 of our library professionals, our library media technicians and teacher librarians, attended a Diversity in Action webinar, which was a 3-part series helping them understand how to promote equity in their libraries. And as a result of that, many of our libraries are now undergoing an equity audit to just make sure that we have diverse materials and that students feel represented in the materials that are there in their libraries. We have been doing a series of book talks. Our elementary coaches will go into an elementary classroom by Zoom, of course, and read a book and then have conversations with the students. And we've been picking books that really showcase issues of equity and have given us age-appropriate opportunities to have some of those conversations with students. And the book talks have been wildly popular. I think we've done 350 or more of them in elementary classrooms in the last couple months. In addition to that, C&I staff has presented a number of professional development sessions that are related to equity, one around assessment practices and making sure that the way we assess student progress toward mastery of standards is not discriminatory, that it promotes equity. We've had office hour series where we talk about conversations for change, which gives teachers an opportunity to come together and talk about topics like racism and sexism. Making Math Meaningful is a professional development that we've offered that helps students connect to the math that they're learning. Structured Literacy offers strategies for students who struggle with reading, and that increases the equity because it gives them access then to everything, all the doors that reading opens up for you. We've been offering social emotional learning office hours where teachers can come together and share what's working, ask questions of one another, and really support one another, which not only helps them be strong in the classroom, but it helps it gives them an opportunity to connect with other people. As we know, Zoom has been a little bit of, it's kind of been an isolating force. And so these office hours have been very popular ways for teachers to come together. And then we also did a 6-part series helping teachers understand ways they could present our sex education lessons in ways that are equitable and safe in a distance learning format. So those are projects we've been working on this year. What I'd like to do now is just give you a sneak preview of some of the things we have planned for next year. We are looking forward to adopting a curriculum for all of our grades, a social emotional learning curriculum. The board recently approved a resolution that all of our graduates should graduate climate literate. And so we are going to be working climate literacy into our science and our history and our reading and our math. So we're excited about that. We will finalize the core literature adoptions. There will be 3 more opportunities for teachers to add to the supplemental reading list if they'd like to. We will take those ideas from the trauma-informed practices PDs that our administrators receive early in the year and work them into our PDs. And the history instructional practices work group is going to continue with its work as well. So we're very excited about all of these things that we're going to have going for next year. Attention, and I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any, or I'd be glad to turn it back over to Letty.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I see some hands. So Elisa.
Yeah, I am wondering what it means to incorporate social emotional learning, for example, in math instruction. And I guess probably maybe we don't have enough time to go over the details here, but is there some document that you can share that goes over the details in case we want to review?
I would be glad to look for a document like that. And if I can find something, I'd be glad to share it with Letty and she can pass it along to you.
Okay.
Any other questions? And I know some of you are on the committee, so you may not have the questions.
Yeah, I guess maybe my question is also, I guess social emotional learning was mentioned if, in several different points. Yeah, I guess I would like to know more about what exactly that means in different areas. So if there are any references that you can share with us, maybe it will be good to take a look to get a better understanding of what that means.
Absolutely. There are some very concrete skills that come together to make up an ideal social emotional learning curriculum. And I'd be glad to share that list with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I think as and maybe I don't know, Kim, if you want to elaborate a little more, we are as a district really building upon the work that historically happens in schools, where it's about building community, making sure students feel safe, making sure students have lowered anxiety and can really access curriculum. And it may be for different things. This point in time, we also know that there's trauma. Our students, there's some students who, because of, have been affected in many different ways. And so as we hear from a lot of our student groups that have done town halls, that certainly have spoken with our board as they call in to share really the need for this, I think, I know, we look at what Alameda County Office of Education is doing in citywide, countywide, really this is a push from all districts. So perhaps, I don't know, Kim, if you want to elaborate a little bit more about our partnership with the county office as well.
In terms of with the social emotional learning work that's being done. Yeah, so the county's definitely taking a lead role in helping us identify possible curriculum options. There are work groups based in the county office that give us an opportunity to talk with teachers and administrators from groups all across Alameda County to see how different schools are approaching this. So I think there's going to be a great resource for us there.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, and I don't want to put some of the CNI members on the spot. Any other perspectives? I know Stacy's here and some of our others, just other perspective to add to Kim's presentation? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciate it. And I do want to share with everyone before she logs off that our teachers, our administrators, and certainly our department, and there's also parent representatives on many of these committees as well, have really done some deep, wonderful work this year. I was able to sit in on a couple of the meetings when they were looking at the supplemental novel adoption process, and just the commitment of our parents who participated along with our teachers and department chairs. I mean, it is really over and above, and just ensuring that the work and the literature that our teachers are accessing and presenting to students are reflective of our student body. So I really appreciate that work as well. If you can pass that on, Kim.
Thank you, I will.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll bid you good night.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Bye, Kim. Well, thank you everyone for that. And I think as we start to build upon the work for next year, we can certainly start to focus just how the intersections, and I see a hand up. Nefpreet? Oh,
Hi.
you're
You know what? I have been doing my research a lot, on equity, and I just put a few things in my comment, and I, I I hope that I see in the agenda that we are going to be planning for next year. There's some points that I would like to see. What are we doing for those points? I saw the CNI presentation, but I don't see anything culturally related lessons there. We need to incorporate those over there. Plus, we need to incorporate restorative justice, because we don't want that if a student is going through a problem, just sent to the office and they're missing classroom. No, we want that the restorative justice is done and they are in the classrooms. I don't see anything coming up so far as to how we are training our teachers into restorative justice.
Yeah, and so very good question point. With Fremont, we are so big. I will say that Kim supports our student services department with that work. So Greg Bailey is leading that work around restorative practices. So we are doing it. We have a very beginning work in that area. So in the elementary side of it, we are working with positive behavior intervention, PBIS, and that is an elementary initiative that our elementary education department works on with the support of Kim Kelly and Greg Bailey. But then also in terms of restorative practices, really more for the secondary. We are very, very excited that we are going to have a substantial amount of professional development available for next year for teachers. And so that is one of the initiatives we're embarking on for next year. In terms of restorative practices to date. I know prior to my coming to Fremont, a lot of the professional development has been in the areas of supporting our administrators and some counselors. But it was not systemic enough to the classroom. And so that is really some of the work we're going to be embarking on next year. So yes, absolutely. That is one of our next steps. And as we transition to the planning, I think, I really appreciate you putting notes in there, because what I would like to do is capture this so we start to really develop the work plan for next year. I think another area is certainly looking at our staffing and how do we work with human resources so that staffing is reflective of our community and our student population. And so that is definitely another next step for us as a district.
And what about culturally relevant teaching practices and all?
Yes, so culturally and linguistically relevant teaching and practices is something that we are starting to look at. And that is also, the question has come up from our board. It is not something you do in isolation. It is really something you do in all professional development. So that's part of what Ms. Kelly is starting to look at as well for next year.
Just a suggestion, Ms. Salinas. I believe Stanford is doing a lot of research into that. And I think we should also look into going into partnership with Stanford University, because I have been part of many conferences with them on equity in education, and they have some really great programs that they have already implemented in the schools around San Francisco. So I think Fremont Unified should also take that advantage and get into partnership and get some training from them, and get into some programs with them.
Yes, absolutely. This year we had all of our principals participated in the RILE program with Stanford, and we're able to see some of the keynote speakers.
Yes.
But yes, absolutely. San Francisco Unified has treaded some wonderful ground with Stanford around that. So yeah. So I'm gonna have you pause, and we'll come back to you. I see some other hands. And then we'll come back. So I think the next hand I saw go up was, oh, Annie's here. Wonderful. Annie, do you want to go ahead? And then we'll go to Sangeeta after that. Annie, did you want to unmute? Oh, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Sorry if there's technical problem. Thanks for letting me in. I just want to ask this specific question about the professional development. Ms. Salinas, you mentioned there's more the district is looking into as far as helping elementary, middle school teacher to train on the on this topic on the equity and the implementation, because I guess the biggest part among everything, only after they trained, they bring that into the classroom. That's where the community feel the difference, right? So I think the biggest part is for community to know whether it's working, how was the improvement? Is there any concrete way or some kind of mechanism to measure? Here is what we train teachers on the equity, on the all kinds of practices along these topics. And here is how we measure. Here's how we're going to do a survey. Here's how we see a year later, 2 years from now, we measure our success.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that is part of the work and what I would like to propose that, and as we start to plan for next year, that we embark on with a baseline, because as you can imagine, equity work, the implementation of equity work, we have to ensure that we have a baseline, because we cannot assume that every teacher or every principal or every staff member really has the same, number one, definition of equity, but number two, has the pedagogy and the practice and the support to implement, right? So we are looking at what that can look like, if it's a baseline of a survey, or if it's really doing an inventory, a self-assessment, all of that. But we also have to know is, like, how do we integrate into the work? Because we also know that next year we're going to be working on social emotional learning. We have a new social studies adoption. We have kids coming back in person, which is fantastic, and we're all coming back. So I'm taking some great notes, and what I am envisioning is that we will have a work plan that comes of this. I also want to share that on Wednesday, we will be sharing with our board just a quick update around the different departments and what has been done so far, but then seeking direction on coming back with a work plan. And I apologize, my puppy is a little loud, so I have the door closed. So my apologies for that. Let's go to, I believe Sangeeta had her hand up next.
Yeah, thank you. So what I wanted to bring out is, so there is a lot of issues in the way we actually have the curriculum designed for special ed students, both in the junior highs and in the high school, and the kind of opportunities that we offer them just because they are in special ed. And I've been trying to work with the special ed director to ask her if we could make any modifications to that. And I mean, most of the conversation just ends with, this is how it's designed, or this is how the secondary, the person who heads the secondary school curriculum, this is how it's designed. So my question is, as the equity board, how do we make sure, or what is the process to change or to begin the conversation to change this? So what do we do about that? I mean, especially when we come down to electives that's offered to special ed students, because it's always taken for granted that, especially those who have an IEP, but they're also in general ed, they've been told that you can only take a resource class, and so sorry, but you're not going to be offered any other elective. When it's been proven time and time again that doing some kind of an art and music is definitely going to enrich any student's life. But because they are general and they have an IEP, and the way our 6-period day is structured, they're not given any options. And this kind of carries on even in the high school, because what happens is, again, they lose an elective every year because they have to be in core support, which is extremely good. I mean, it helps them with a lot of things, but then they don't get an opportunity to expand beyond that. They lose an elective period, so they can't try something new, which would probably help them in future in their careers. So how do we even begin? Because I'm literally hitting a wall. I spoke to the special ed director, lots of email exchanges, but then it just comes to a standstill at some point saying, hey, this is how it is. So does it have to come from the parents? Or as an equity board, can we actually make a difference in this?
So I think it's two-part. I'm going to ask folks to mute themselves if they're not speaking. We're getting a little bit of back feed with me. So I think part of the work is certainly seeing, especially when it comes to special education, one size does not fit all. So that's why we go through the IEP process and we're able to do that. But I also think that as a district, we have to really come to consensus as to what is our base program And then with that commitment is, do we fund it? We have to fund it, and making those decisions. So what I would say is I'm taking notes, and really this is going to be the deep work we look at, because I know that with programs, as you said, the resource support is fantastic, and that's really accelerating the student, giving him or her what they need in the moment to make sure that they're making the gains. But then how do we do the other part, the electives? With that would be certainly funding, but it's something that we don't want to just do it at one school. It's really looking at the discussion of what is the base program for all schools to do that, and then what is the funding that goes behind it. So I would say that that is something that we look at definitely as an equity team. We can, I know the board is very much interested in recommendations and what that can look at. So we could look at that as part of our work for next year. Also knowing that we have other committees such as the LCAC. Now the LCAC, which supports the Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP, is another funding mechanism that supports students, particularly the unduplicated, which is English learners, foster youth, unhoused students, and also with some of our students with in the special education program. So there is a place for that. I think it lives here, and we can certainly tag that onto our work. So I'm making a quick note of it as well. And I think Stacy, you were next, and then Navpreet.
So I just want to mention, because I do have a problem to say no, that we do have a new committee that's being housed out of CNI that just started in March, called the History and Social Science Instructional Practice Group. And I know this group of educators, kindergarten through 12th grade, we'll be looking through the history and social sciences, with looking at the lens through equity, to make sure that all stakeholders are represented, and make recommendations on how we can support all educators in this district, so then we can support all of our students. So I know we've been in the learning phase, trying to get all of us in the same mindset. But I know next year we're going to be looking more into doing presentations on the FAIR Act, presenting that, hopefully coming up with recommended lists, maybe by grade levels or what, especially down in the lower grades of picture books, because we know that a lot of our teachers want to get some of this stuff into their classrooms. They just don't know where to start. They don't know which book is good over this book. So if this committee can kind of look to be more diverse, more equitable, more everything, how can we take things in our new social studies adoption program that is much better than our old program? But there are history is always changing. Laws are always changing. How can we take what's changed since the curriculum we just adopted was state board adopted? What can we do to support all the educators? And what I liked being on this committee is that there are representation from kindergarten, every grade from kindergarten through 12th grade. There are classroom teachers, there are resource teachers, there's special ed teachers. So it's a good mix, and maybe not right away in September or October, but maybe at some point, maybe the Nate Ivy, who's in charge of our group, maybe he could do a small presentation, just so the parents on this committee know that it seems like we're moving slowly. We are really trying. We are getting there, but it does take time. And I'm very appreciative that funding has been made to support these teachers to start doing the work, so we can support all educators in this district. And that leads to then supporting all of our students. So I just wanted to mention that there's work being done. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Stacey. I appreciate that. Navpreet, did you have something else? I didn't want to.
No, I just feel, that, and I was just putting it in the comments also, Bettina Love said, education cannot save us. We have to save education. And I just feel that we need to do something more concrete to save our education system at Fremont Unified. I think this is my passion that speaks, because, and I totally agree with what Ms. Srikanth said earlier, I think in special ed, students should be allowed to have something other than resource as their elective. Definitely we should expand when we are going into inclusion so much, we need to look into that and provide them also the same opportunities that other students are getting. And I just would like to see in our future plans something more where we are implementing culturally relevant teaching practices, and we are looking into more restorative justice. That is going to be a starting point and provide equity in our classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. So why don't we do this? I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share some of the proposed dates for next year. And I think what we could probably do is go ahead and start to just plot out the kind of information that we would need at the first few meetings. So I'm hearing, having a report out about the work around social studies, and even in the CLR, the culturally and linguistically relevant materials that we're using. I'm also hearing, let's look at special education students and their access. But there's also going to be even certainly rolling out the equity work and the restorative practices work. So if you can indulge me, let me share my screen. I can figure out how to do that. Oh, I apologize. Just a second.
It's called Present Now at the
Yeah,
bottom.
I found it, but I'm trying to figure out, do I have to, hold on a second, my apologies.
I guess once you do Present Now, you find the document.
Yeah. It's just not letting me. My apologies. My goodness. Just a second. So what I was proposing, and actually, this will do it. We switched over, and I usually have my right-hand guy, Mr. Bailey, here with me sharing his screen. Just a second. Okay, I saw it. I was doing the wrong thing. I was doing a tab instead of sharing a window. So are you able to see my Word doc? Yes. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so you're able to see the proposed 21-22 meeting dates?
Ms. Salinas, can you just make it a little bigger?
Sure, as long as you can see it, but you can see it.
Yeah,
so
yeah, we can see it, but just
okay,
can you make it a little bigger for us?
Yes. How's that? Can you see that? I can't see you guys. Are you saying yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so when we look at what the equity team does and the proposed dates, it says that we meet quarterly. So I'm going to propose that we meet more often. Because I think we got a late start this year, but I have to tell you, I know we're a big group, but we are a mighty group, and I think we needed the diversity of so many members. And I know it's tough, but we move on. So what I'm proposing is that we meet in September, October, November, no meeting in December, January, February, March, no meeting in April, and these are because of the breaks just cutting in, and then in May with a possible June meeting. But what I wanted to do was to really start to plan out what would be the topics that we would start to really work through on these, and knowing that these first two meetings really should be a baseline of the current state of the state, because we cannot stay there forever. We will have to come up with our action plan and then roll out, and able to give our board feedback, our community feedback, and really make some changes. So I apologize. I cannot see you when I'm looking at this and typing this. So I'm actually going to ask, can I have someone help me to call on hands who would like to start?
There are no hands up so far.
There are no hands up. Okay. Would anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Are you asking what topic or agenda?
Yeah, I'm asking what topic. Yes, I'm asking what topic, but also, as you heard Stacy was saying, what will be really important is to know the state of the state in social studies. And we can probably not do it in September, but maybe later on. I'm asking what information would we need in September to really get started on this?
Alison has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm we are not meeting over this summer.
We are not meeting over the summer, no.
Would it? Oh, I was just thinking, like, if we kind of plan everything ahead in the summer, then once school starts, then we can like kickstart into action and be like kind of ready for all our planning. But yeah, sorry, I was under the impression that we'd be meeting over the summer. But
Oh yeah, I mean, what we could do is perhaps do an August date, but I also want to give our teachers a break. I want to give some of our administrators a break, and they're all although our administrators do come back in August or late July, they're going to have a lot on their plate with the reopening. So that's why I have put in September 14th. I can make that an earlier. I can make it the week before that, but that was my thinking.
okay, thank you.
I don't mind to start first.
Go ahead.
I think the equity, I mean, the curriculum is one of the most important topic. So I don't know where you want to put in which month as time appropriate, but we want to see the diversity and, you know, the equity in the curriculum, right? So I believe there's a curriculum committee as well. And I heard there's some great work that they have been doing that for this committee. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I think people in this committee want to see what's happening there.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll do an update there. What about who else would like to speak? What about September? What else can we do in September? Would we like to look at the preliminary data?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have 3 more hands up.
Okay.
Lucy, Megha, Stacy, and Lefty in that order.
Go ahead.
My hand is up. It's Stacy. I just think I like the curriculum foundation, and I like looking at data. And I know this is the equity, but it would be kind of nice to see if there's some later on, to see if there's some data from summer school, because I know that there's something going on with the math, with the summer math academy, where elementary used to dive into ELA and math. Was that a strength? Is that something we need to move forward to be equitable? Because there are some students strong in one, but not the other. So right now we're focused on that. So, you know, being equitable to all of our students. And I, being the representative from the CNI committee, my term is actually up, hoping to be reappointed. So I will make sure that Kim Kelly will let you know if I'm not appointed. I would probably come to September because they don't start till October, to make sure there's representation and then moving forward. But again, I hope to be reappointed to the committee, so there is no removal or whatnot, since I know what we've already done. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's great. Is there any, staying in that, is there any other data we would like to look at? I can share, let me let you know, at that point, we will have some of the achievement data from iReady available from the elementary grades. I can bring that as well. Would that be something of interest? And that's in mathematics and language arts.
So, Letitia, you will have that data for junior high till 8th grade. So middle school is also covered there.
Yes, yes.
Assessment data, can you, is there any data that will be available on the assessments that what we've done this year?
Correct. Yes, we will have that available.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay, wonderful.
You asked about data. I'm sorry to jump in here. And one of the things, I'm sorry, this is Walt Lewis.
Hi, Walt. Sorry, I can't see you. I'm typing away.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. One of the things that I'm hearing about, not only about special ed and that sort of thing, is accessibility. And it always brings to mind disproportionality to me. So I would like to see data on who exactly is in our accelerated classes and who is exactly is, you know, taking our AP courses, and see what, if there is disproportionality there, who's in our accelerated courses. You know, disproportionality is something that we work on at the site level quite a bit with our data. So if there is any data on that, and it may be too early at this point to really talk about that, you know, for at least this school year. So it may have to be in the arrears, what happened in the 2021 school year. So anyway, that's what I would like to see in terms of data.
Great. Okay, thank you.
To add on Mr. Lewis' comments, he mentioned the accessibility. I mean, for the AP classes, a lot of them are based on qualification. I guess, you know, whatever qualifies, whoever goes to the AP classes. There's another aspect as the equity among schools. There are 5, 6 high schools. Some schools does have AP classes available at 10th grade. Some schools they don't. So can we add that element as well as far as course offering at the grade level? Because it's, in a way, it's not fair for the schools that doesn't offer compared to other schools. The 10th grade, they get offered 2 AP classes, which one of the school doesn't offer anything.
Okay, got it.
That would apply to honors as well. That's not just AP, but we should look at the honors classes at the elementary level as well.
Okay.
I see Megha has been waiting patiently with her hand.
All
right, thanks. This is, I think this may not be directly related to your question about data, but I just had like 2 points I wanted to bring up before we break for the next year. And one was about like data collection. So right now we're operating off of data that's already been collected. And we know that sometimes problems occur with the data that's being collected, and maybe certain groups are excluded, or we're not disaggregating data based on the right factors. So I'm wondering like if there's a way for us as a committee to like set a precedent for what data is collected. I know like there was one meeting where we were talking about the lack of data available on like the LGBTQ+ population. And so I'm wondering if like, since we don't have that data to operate on, we can set a precedent to collect that data. And then the other point I wanted to bring up was in terms of our structure as a team. I'm not sure if we were like allowed to address public comments, but I really do like the working group structure, and especially since we'll be taking a break, I personally would like to keep myself like involved in researching with what our school district is doing. So I'm wondering if there's a way to like informally maybe research over the summer, or if there's any processes we can set up for that, just so everyone stays informed.
Yeah, the only thing would be difficult would be access to staff. So we will not be able to ask staff for things because they're working on other projects. But we can certainly, at the end, I think maybe there is something we can certainly research on our own, or we can get together. And actually maybe what we could do is do some kind of an email correspondence, even if it's not a formal meeting, but just an email update to everyone in August. So hold that thought for me at the end and bring it back. So absolutely. And so I do remember the discussion about what data is to be collected, and really looking at what can we collect as a board. So we are mandated to collect certain data sets. There's kind of no way around that, and that is outside of the purview of school districts. But it doesn't mean we can't collect other types of data. So that can be part of our discussion. I think after we see the foundational data that we have here in September, and then we can look to see what else is collected. Absolutely. There is another data set, and that might be something to research. Every year, every school district in California has to collect data for the Office for Civil Rights. And a lot of that data set does speak to a lot of the anti-bullying, a lot of the LGBTQ plus student groups. So that might be something to look at, and that may be accessible for us as a district. So that might be something we can look at as well. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you, Walt, also for that other piece, because I think a lot of this goes hand in hand. Okay, so I'm going to move off of September because this is a lot already, because I want to be able to give you all discussion and time to look at data sets and all of that. So let's talk about October. Who's next that would like to contribute?
So we have Elisa.
Lucy has her hand up,
Yeah,
and
Lucy.
Walter has his hand up.
Sorry, I had my hand up from earlier to say the exact thing that was it Mega that said it earlier about subcommittees and utilizing our summertime for that. So I just +1 to that, I guess. I've lowered it now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Walter, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so, and Stacy can help me with this as well previously, and Trustee Prasad, I think, was in the last committee meeting. But one of the things that the committee was working on is bringing some recommendations to the board. And one of the recommendations from the C&I committee was to ensure that any of those recommendations are something that is also dovetailed with the work that that the equity committee is doing. It was a bit of a concern that there are two committees working on some of this work in parallel. And so at some point, I don't know when, but at some point during the course of the year on this equity committee, it would be nice to be able to weigh in on some of the work that the equity committee is actually doing around, they're doing things around definition and around those sorts of things. It does not seem to make sense to do those sorts of things in isolation in two separate committees. So much of the conversation was around that. Just a bit of a, hey, can we fit that in somewhere to be able to do that? So, yeah.
I like that idea. Is everyone, so looking at a January date, I'm trying to front load as much as possible to the beginning of the year. With that, was everybody, those of you on the CNI and just hearing that spirit of that conversation, do you think January would be too soon or okay?
Actually, my thinking would be we should do that in October, even if it is a short conversation, so that the two committees can go off and do their pieces and then come back and coordinate again in January.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Trustee Prasad from being on CNI advisory and being part with Trustee Prasad on the subcommittee that we are working on. It'd be nice to maybe give you guys an update in October, maybe see where the two committees can work together, and then maybe revisit it back in January or February again. So maybe we could put them placeholder maybe in two places. That would be my suggestion too.
Okay.
Elsie has raised her hand.
Elisa?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't unmute correctly. I just wanted to ask if we should be taking a look at the effect of distance learning and the pandemic on different groups of students, and what the district is doing to enable credit recovery options.
Okay, I'm going to put, I like that. I think what I'll do is let me look at October. We may have that data sooner because I think we'll see some of the data when we start to look at it under summer school and then the data we're administering right now. But then we'll have to get the baseline, excuse me, the next set of data is in September. So I think I'm going to say October for overview effect of pandemic, learning gaps, next steps. Okay. I'm putting that in there. And that's by student groups. Okay. I like that. So it's still continuing with some data, but I think it'll also be a really good meeting. I think I am leaning more towards October for coordinating with CNI. And it'll just be a check-in with Kim Kelly to make sure that it works. I think it will. So that's a lot for October. Is there anything that would fit in there that we should not miss? And then I will say, how about this? With learning gaps, maybe we can also do a check-in on the restorative practices because I think that might be something to start to front load for us all. Y'all okay with that? Okay, I'm gonna put this in there. I'll put a question mark and then we'll see how it fits. Okay. Okay. Now we're getting to November. And I think at this, it will be a good opportunity to do some work plan practice, because we'll have a nice foundation on data. We will have a good foundation in coordination with curriculum and instruction and looking at the data that we have so far. I think this November would be the time to really draft out our work for the rest of the year and what we want to make changes around. Like, what will be our problem of practice, right? What do we want to make changes with? And then make recommendations to our Board of Education.
So Letitia, I don't see the special ed evaluation anywhere in the agenda in September and October. Is that something we're going to?
Well, I would say, you know, I'm looking at September and October as a way to look at data. So perhaps what we could do is add some data to September or October as to like, so like, for example, you know, how many students do we have in RSP? Let's just say that at the junior high, and what access do they have to enrichment, or looking at I don't know, I'd have to really talk with Fran English, with the director, to see what kind of data set is available, but we would need that before we get to November. So maybe.
So it's actually, it's not, nothing is available in any of the Fremont schools at this time, because if you, there is only resource. There is plenty of enrichment opportunities for general ed, but there is only core support available. So it's not like we really need to collect any data. Of course, we just need to collect the data of how many students are in special ed with resource support. But other than that, there is no enrichment programs offered today.
Okay, so let me put, I'm going to put it in October. Let me see. I'm going to put it in both places. And then depending on how it coordinates and how it fits, because I want to be able to give it enough time as well. So I'll just put special education data. And I also want to talk about the CSACE, and that's the identification of students with disabilities. And that's in part of the work that we're doing. I'm going to put it in both areas.
So also, if you could be specific about offering more enrichment options, so we know exactly what we're looking at the special ed, right?
But that's what we all have to do as a group. So we're going to have to figure out as a group, what will be our priority. We can't do it all in, you know, in 1 month or 2 months. So that's part of the discussion in November.
Okay.
Looking at, after we look at all these data sets, and then we start to prioritize. And it could be like what Mega and what Lucy were saying. Do we break off into small groups to then come up with some information that we share with our board, or we present to the superintendent? Or do we just prioritize 2 things that as a group, we're really going to focus on these 2 things? So I think here it will be in November when we develop the work group. I'm sorry, not the work group, the work plan, and set priorities. And just so we don't lose track of it, I could say, is it special education and access to electives? Is it restorative practices? Excuse my spelling. Only I know what I write. Restorative practice. Is it that we're looking at culturally and linguistically responsive storybooks and curriculum? You know, we don't know, right? And but then the reason why I say we don't know is because we have to look at the data sets before we can make a determination as to our work plan. And the other thing I heard here was staffing, right? And the diversity of our staff. That was something else. And I say that because, and it may also be that we support other departments to do it. Although I know curriculum, instructional services has the big lift. Some of these, there may be other departments that can support with this work, like human resources as it relates to that one. Okay. Okay, so then And any hands on this? Or I'm going to keep going. I think so. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is a equity advisory committee to the board. And I don't see a report out to the board. When are we sharing with the Board of Education the work that we've been doing? And when do we share with them the work that I know curriculum and instruction they presented to us? Are we presenting at the same time as they are, or when are they even presenting to the board?
Right. So that I think would be fantastic to calendar right now. So let me open it up to all of you. So we certainly can do written updates to our board that are not a formal presentation, but it is also very important to do a formal presentation so that folks are aware of the work. So my advice would be perhaps to look at early spring to do something like that, along with some written updates to the board. Is there anybody that would say, let's do something a little differently? Okay, I don't see anybody. Okay, so how about this?
Todd, do you have any suggestions? I think you're frozen. Trustee Prasad? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's frozen. Oh, no, now he's not. He just unfroze himself.
Yeah, I was listening intently. Yeah. So, I suppose this is on the report out, right?
Yes. So I'm thinking if we do written report or updates to the board, that's something we can do, and that's part of the work plan. But if we can go ahead and start to calendar out like a spring date to report out publicly, that might be something else we can do.
We should. Is there an end of year report out from today that we should also think about? We've been in commission for 4 months now.
Yes, so at this point, we're not planning to do that. If you remember, the board had asked for an update as it related to what have we been working on in terms of different departments. But at this point, we weren't planning on that. And I say that selfishly because June and May are full of LCAP and a lot of other work. So we can calendar it out for next year, but I would say it would be early spring so that it's very much away from the LCAP, the SIPSAs, the public hearings of all of the budgets, just all the things we have to do in the late spring. So I could say that we could do an update to the board, I would say in March.
Wow, okay. My thinking is if we do a report out, even if it is a small paragraph, right? So this is where we are focused on. We reviewed the data in September and here some of the feedback we got. So small report outs can help us also provide more guidance back to the committee, right? So if we go from this January to next year, March, and not have any feedback, to me, that's a problem.
And I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to prioritize all of the other committees and the other work. So we can definitely, and I'm happy to take priority over the others, but
maybe a report out to me could be something simple or comprehensive, right? So incremental progress and focus, so even if it is a few lines, and maybe we can pick someone here to draft it for us. And that way there's a continuity of or some connection with the board.
Well, I think it's not just with the board, guys. I think that this has been a hot topic for our community for months now, you know, in light of all of the social unrest, in light of the pandemic, in light of the Asian hate and all of the stuff that's going on, that I think it's important. And it doesn't have to be comprehensive, you know, a 10-page slide deck and all of that. It could be, you know, even a consent item, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a big old report out. You can do a sort of, here's what we've done since from January to the end of the school year, boom, and put it on consent. And then folks can ask questions if they want to ask questions about that work. And then the work will continue in light of the fact that we only been we've only been, we've only convened for a certain amount of time. I just want to give the community an update on the work that we're doing, and do that really quickly. And for the end of the year, maybe you bring it to us in July. But at least in July, we have something that the families can see that this is the work we've done to the end of the school year. And then there was a question in the chat. It says, will this document be sent out after the meeting? The one that you're working on prioritizing?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Items. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that came from, I think it's, I don't even want to begin to pronounce people's names because I know I'm the worst at pronouncing names, and my name is the worst to be pronounced. So thank you.
Yeah, Megha asked that question, and maybe that actually could be as a report out, could be that after this, whatever, 3 meetings, the committee is deciding to look at the prioritized order for next year, starting September, and that could be, so the community can see what the thought process is over here.
Yes, that's a good way to approach it. Easy. We've already got it. Copy and paste it into a slide deck, put it on consent. We're done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Apologize. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, let me fix this. Okay, so what we'll do is, I'm going to actually go to the bottom of this just to make myself some notes and for you all to see. So we're going to say public state to board and community as possible. And then a more formal, I am going to, so the possibility of a March public presentation update to board. We'll see how it goes with our timing. Okay, perfect. Okay. Is there any other questions on this part?
I have a question on what is this consent we are that people is mentioning. I assume this is some kind of system where people can post documents, or?
So the consent agenda part of the consent part of an agenda will have the information for the public, but it won't necessarily be a formal presentation.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, anyone else? Okay, let's go back to going back to the work plan. So going back to the work, oh, I'm not sharing it, just a second, I apologize.
So Ms. Salinas, if you're talking to us, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I'm unable. It's just really hard on Google Meet. I can't see you all, and I can't. So I'm going to unmute myself for the rest of this and then start sharing again. And then, let's see, a window. So what do we have for the other months? Why don't you all just speak out and we can kind of go from there, because I won't be able to toggle back and forth.
I'm not sure if this is I'm sorry. Go ahead, trustee.
Go ahead.
Well, let me, so quick thought. One of the topics that we need to also address is mental health, right? And where do we slot that in?
So say that again, Trustee Prasad, I couldn't hear.
So one of the topics comes that we need to address is mental health.
Okay.
And equitable access to mental health. Sorry, Walter, go ahead.
Would that be perhaps a coordination with the Wellness Committee?
Perhaps, yes.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is, I like this in February, we could look coordination with Wellness Committee and or Student Support Services, perhaps we can look at that.
Right.
Maybe they can come and give us a presentation on the work that
and
they're
looking
doing.
at data. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And you know what I'm also thinking? By then we will also have really looked at the fruits of our labor around the ELOG, the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant, and how some of that work has perhaps met the needs of students or not yet met the needs of students. So maybe like an update on work with the Expanded Learning Opportunity.
I have a question about mental health. If it's a good time to interrupt.
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that the district doesn't currently gather feedback about the users of the services provided through the district. And I think that will be a very important thing to do so that we can understand if the services provided are being effective or if there are any issues. So is there a way to start collecting feedback so that we have some actual data when the time comes to take a look at how we can improve the services provided?
Okay, so you're saying the services provided like by some of our community partners? And
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Services provided to students, or I don't know if staff also get services through the district.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, now I think for the March meeting, we really should do a review of the work plan. And I see Mega. I can actually see a little bit of the screen. I see Mega has her hand up. Is she the only one?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was going to say, am I monitoring it? I think Trustee Prasad bounced on me.
We're gonna have to really. We're gonna, yeah. I really appreciate you both.
I'm monitoring the hand raising.
I appreciate
it. So I have Megan or Megan. I'm so sorry.
Mega, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no worries. My question was, I know Ms. Salinas, I think you're leading like a study session in the board meeting tomorrow, and I was looking through the presentation, and on the special education and assessment slide, there's a little like segment about developing an MTSS model, and I think that ties sort of like ties pretty directly with mental health. So I was wondering, do you have any more information on that, and how can we contribute to research in developing that model?
So so you're saying that we should talk about it here?
It was just a general question. I didn't really have like a time.
Okay. Oh, okay. But we should probably, now that you bring it up, we should probably update here on MTSS model. So staff has been working on really working out the work at the sites, but then developing a district-wide MTSS model. So that is, we have had training with the Santa Clara County Office of Ed and their practitioners as to how to do a district-wide model. And so next year, because of the disproportionate identification of Latino students in some areas of special education, we will be looking at that as a district, and that will look at the tier 1, tier 2s for behavior, the behavioral part of MTSS, but also the academic part of MTSS. So we can definitely bring that forward to the equity team to show that work. But that is currently in the making right now. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to keep going. I am going to add MTSS, and that way we'll all learn more about it. Oh, go ahead.
Stacy's hand is raised.
Oh, go ahead, Stacy.
I just wanted to know if we could add somewhere every like quarter where we get a little bit of time for study sessions where we can break up into smaller groups or breakout rooms and have discussions and see moving forward recommendations, whether people know ahead of time, okay, you're going to be assigned to this group or that one. So like in one meeting. So that maybe that subcommittee could do a little work and then report out. But I think if we do something maybe at least once every quarter, I think that would go with what the public comment was referring to. There is so many of us with all these great ideas, but sometimes we get hung up on discussion and then we don't really move forward. So
thank you.
Thank you. Walter?
So next year, several schools are really looking at grading for equity, and I'm not sure there's actually room in our calendar to be able to do that. And I also don't think it's something that should be done early in the year, as this is a learning year on grading for equity. And I think it would be a really good, at least a short presentation of the work around the Joe Feldman book, Grading for Equity. ACOE is supporting that work as well, and hopefully we'll have several teachers that are actually going through a cohort model to be able to, do a cycle of inquiry around grading and the impact on equity. So if there is time, we may want to do that, but it is work that is going on that I think would be of interest to this committee. So
that's great. Yeah.
Can I add to what Walter has said? My site is one of the sites that is already going ahead with it, and we are going to be presenting to our staff and all. And I think it's a great idea because this grading will provide equity in a better way. This is the kind of grading which is going to give us a better study of what is the knowledge base of our students, because it is more standard based grading. So this will be a great idea for equity, for moving forward, for us to review it and see where we are about it and how well it is going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to absolutely acknowledge that. I had a great opportunity to work with the county folks, and bringing this forward to the district, I think, has been just, building on, I came up with the work with Ryle and with Stanford. This really is right up the alley. So I'll put it in there as like an update, but knowing that it is ongoing work. It's not done yet. This is the beginning, and just that would be great to share out.
Yeah.
And I have one other question, and then yes. I know we're just about out of time. Now we do a reclassification of our English learners, right? And correct. So how often do we do that?
We do it once a year. We have some unusual years where they let us use different criteria, but I do like where you're going with this. That will be good data to look at. I'm going to add it to it as well. That's great.
Okay. Yeah, because there was a lot of questioning when LCFF came, that we were, in some ways not reclassifying our English learners because we were getting that, special pot of money that for English language learning, and some districts were considering a different model of reclassification. So I'd like to hear how we're reclassifying, so to make sure that it's equitable across the district in terms of our students.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I've added on there. I'm not sharing my screen, but I did add it on there, and I'll share this document.
Oh no, that's okay. I believe you. Let's see. We still have some hands in the queue. I'm going to lower mine because I think I've got what I needed. But Walter, did you want to speak again? I see all of the hands.
I'm sorry. I'm going to lower mine too. I just forgot. Sorry.
Okay. And I think Navpreet, you also spoke. Did you want to speak again? I see your
Yeah,
hand still raised.
I wanted to add something. So I just wanted to make
Okay.
a request, Letitia, if you could also check with Stanford University about the Equity in Education Conference and other programs that we can be part of, and see how we can partnership with them. Because the past 2 years that I attended, I really got beautiful kernels of strategies, that really worked well in my classroom.
Yes, absolutely. And when I worked in San Francisco Unified, I'm going to see if I can tap on some of my colleagues over there, because they built that whole partnership. And we may be able to do something.
Yeah, because if we could just convince them to partnership with us, that will be very helpful for us, especially for the culturally relevant teaching practices. We can get a lot of stuff from them.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm making myself a note. Okay.
And then I see Elisa.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question to the English language learner reclassification that Trustee Campbell was brought up. I was just wondering, does being classified as an English language learner actually have any negative side effects for the students? I guess I am thinking about my own kids. In elementary grades, at least, I don't think it has any negative.
It does not. It does not. I think, when we look at the data, what the data shows us across California, across the United States, actually students who were English learners and then became fluent English proficient or reclassified English proficient actually do better because they have that additive piece of the other language. So no, there isn't. But what's very important for the state of California and for our students is that we track them, and that we ensure that students do not become long-term English learners, and that they're not making progress towards English proficiency. And certainly with our immersion, that they're proficient in both languages.
Okay, so I guess the only concern will be that they are not able to become proficient in English. Other than that, I guess there is no other issue.
Right.
No, there shouldn't be. No.
Okay. Thank you.
No, actually, it's actually a good thing, because then they're not considered English language learners.
For a long time. Yeah,
for a long period of time. I mean, I know that English language learners, there's lots of additional resources that's them, but then they would be considered proficient in English and could be considered bilingual, which is even more certificate of bilingual which helps them even more as they get older and move into high school and college and all of those. So it's actually a good thing, but some districts are holding kids back from being proficient in that way so they can get extra funding. So that's an equity issue for me. And so I just want to make sure that we are equitably looking at our students and reclassifying them as a proficient in English, so that they can also get additional resources to other classes, honors and AP classes and all of the other stuff that English learners actually get. Okay.
Great. So we have a few more minutes.
Okay, so I got two more in the queue, and then I think we're done. Annie, and then Trustee Prasad.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Very quick, I guess, we've talked a lot. We had a few meetings. I missed one meeting. Unfortunately, I was not able to join, but I'm kind of a little bit get lost at this moment. We're working on the work plan. The work plan was presented. What was the big picture? What was the plan to finalize that work plan, to implement in the district level throughout? And I hope, like I said in the beginning, some kind of measurement also put into that plan to be able to measure the success. So I just want to understand at high level, at the big picture, what timeline and what's the plan? What are we doing?
Yes, so at a very high level, I'm going to share that document with you all, but it's essentially, after I fix my spelling mistakes, it is essentially, we're building our foundation. We have a new board policy that our board has adopted. Foundation number 2 is really the data, and that's going to be what we look at next year, and that's what we just did we've just projected out for next year's first two meetings. And then we're going to be working on a work plan of what do we want to achieve as a committee, because we are advisory to the board. And so what I heard from our trustees and from some of you is ongoing updates to the board, some very public updates, but maybe also just some quick updates as to how we're progressing. But I also heard that we're coordinating with other committees, because we don't want to be working parallel, doing the same work, and then coming out with different results. That's also not very helpful to our board of trustees. So that will be next year's work.
Sounds like at least a year, 2 years of work. Entire plan.
I think what we can do, I'll have some suggestions. It may be a 2-year plan where we have some immediate wins and updates to our trustees that, of recommendations. There may be that, but you're right. It's not going to happen overnight. And then it's not something that's done. Equity work, you don't finish. You just continue to make the organization or the institution stronger as it permeates throughout all of our work. So although, some of us may not be here to see it into its full fruition, I think our work will be to really continue to build, but I hope we are, because we have such now an investment with all of you and you with me, that my hope is that, it will be probably a multi-year plan, but that's really how the work really ends up, working out when it's deep work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I think our last is our trustee Prasad.
Yeah, so I mean, following up on what Annie said, so it's not like one plan, right? We have to keep creating the first step and the next step and the next step. So overall, as long as we are making progress, it's all good. And the prioritization of where we want to make progress needs to be done by this committee. So, and like Letty, you said, this is going to be ongoing effort. It's not a one-time get it done. And so I have one comment. You've picked some setup dates, and I'll quote Stacy from the previous meeting. She was silent because she was already meeting out from the previous meetings of the day. And then she sat for 3 hours as well. So can we try to have less conflicts, and specifically this one lands just before our board meeting, and there's a flurry of activity that's happening to prepare for the board meeting. So if you can, I don't know what this you feel, if you can keep it on the week that doesn't coincide with the board meeting week, that would be, that way we'll come in more prepared for these meetings.
Oh, that would be so helpful. I hate having meetings on Monday and Tuesday before the board meeting, because that means I'm up late, on Monday and Tuesdays, and our meetings go, how our meetings go. It's too much. So it would be helpful if we could do it on an alternative week.
And then just to chime in, I noticed that for the calendar, it's going to be the second Tuesday, which was the original proposal of the month, where this year we ended up on the third Tuesday. So that should help solve that problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will double check with the dates with the board meeting, and I know, but we do have an agreement to keep it to Tuesdays. It seems like that is the day of the week that is pretty good for folks. Okay.
Yeah, as long as it's not the Tuesday before the board meeting.
I'm gonna try. I will try.
I know it's hard.
It is hard. I have to tell you, yeah, it's tough. We have a lot of wonderful meetings that go on throughout this whole district.
I know, but we have hundreds and hundreds of pages of document to go through, and we only have a short period of time in which to go through it, because the agenda is not posted until Friday. And so if we have any family activities over the weekend, we don't get to it. So we only have Monday and Tuesday, literally, to go through hundreds of pages of documents and hundreds of emails. Oh, but you guys, why don't you guys could run for office? Look at these great.
Well, thank you, everyone.
All right,
I'm just ended here, but I just want to thank you. This has been wonderful. I will double check these dates. So I may not send it out tonight, but I'll probably send it out first thing in the morning. I've got some emails to do myself tonight. So thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful break.
Yes,
We'll talk to you
okay,
soon.
thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you, Mr.
Bye.
Samora. Bye-bye, everyone.